People often join cults because they don't look anything like a cult when they first get involved with it. Most likely, the cult is offering something that is beneficial to that person at that time or is creating a solution to whatever problem that person might face. But with Bentinho Massaro, I cannot figure out exactly what he's offering. It seems to be just a series of musings about nothing, and no real point is ever being made. But what I think he's really trying to sell is this connection to something bigger than yourself. The idea that if you're connected to something higher than you or larger than you, then you will experience pure bliss here on earth. Because according to Bentinho, we are all a part of one big consciousness. So today we are going to listen to what Bentinho has to say and try to make some sense of it. So sit back, relax, and take a deep breath because it is time to let the fresh air in. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're brand new. My name is Erin and I am fascinated by all things cult, true crime, and unique spiritual practices. I like to do deep dives on cults and cult leaders, and then in my follow-up video about that cult or cult leader, debunk the ideology that those people are trying to push. So today, we are going to try to debunk the things that Bentinho Massaro says, and he says a lot. If you have no idea who I'm talking about, please go ahead and go watch this video for context. It's my most recent video. I just dropped it on Monday. It's all about Bentinho, and there are some trigger warnings, so make sure you read the disclaimer at the beginning of the video. To be honest, I kind of put off recording this video because I was watching some of his content, and if you've ever been gaslighted before, you might know this sensation, but it started feeling like my brain was getting tied up in knots because I was just trying so desperately to make sense of what he's saying and try to understand the value that people are gaining from it and the value that he's trying to provide. Maybe I'm still looking at it from too biased of a lens because I just made that deep dive about him. And he just really, as the boomers like to say, grinds my gears. So I felt a lot of resistance in wanting to react to him. Let me know. I'm going to be really curious. Let me know what you guys think, how you're interpreting some of this stuff, because I really try to argue the facts, right? I don't want to ever fall into the habit of making any ad hominem or personal attacks on anyone. And in some of my other debunking videos, I've felt very confident in how I'm debunking. But Bentinho talks in these flowery circles and redefines things. So it's really hard to understand the point he's trying to make. But according to Bentinho and his followers, I'm probably just like not high density enough to understand his brilliant musings, which I'm going to disagree with. Okay. So we're going to watch videos from early on, and we're going to watch some videos to recently. And fun fact, he actually launched a brand new live episode, live streaming situation the day before I dropped my video about him. So I was like, talk about divine timing, because I think the universe was on my side when it came to that one. So I think the timing is perfect. So if you are falling upon Bentinho's teachings now, please go watch my previous video. He is a dangerous person with dangerous behavior and dangerous ideology. Let's get into this first reaction. What has caused humans to become so confused about life and reality?
It is indeed due to what we've been learned to focus on so much, which is the names, the descriptions, the labels, the stories, the ideas, the beliefs. We're all taught to focus on these things, on these ideas, the concepts. We're not ever really taught from an early age onward to be aware of the fact that we exist, just to have some awe, to have some respect and gratitude and a moment of acknowledgement, a pause of acknowledgement for the sense of presence which pervades everything that is.
Lots to unpack already. And this is actually like more clear. Like I understand a little bit more about the point he's trying to make here. Yes, I would tend to agree. We do get caught up in labels instead of who we really are. And I just think it's funny to be like, the point of life is to know that you're alive. Okay, well, I know I'm alive. I just want to know how to make my life better and happier. And I don't think it starts with me recognizing that I'm alive. Are we grateful to exist in this pure moment? Absolutely. Do we get swept away in labels we assign ourselves? Absolutely. I mean, I definitely feel like, especially this year, I've had some realizations of, is this who I am or is this who I like to tell people I am? You know, like, for example, big identifiers for myself are I'm an actor, I'm vegan, I do yoga. Like these are things that I identify myself with, and there is an idea of a certain type of person that people have based off of their perception when you label yourself. But I also recognize that I am not just these labels. I am so many more things. And I have a certain energy, and every single person has a specific energy. It's funny he says we get so caught up in all of these concepts and ideas, but all his teachings are concepts and ideas. And he is saying that these are the correct or right concepts and ideas because he is sent from somewhere else to tell us these concepts and ideas. Also, and maybe I'm aging myself here, but I've always, even when I was in my 20s, I always thought it was a pet peeve when people in their early 20s try to tell other people how to live their life or are life coaches, because you just haven't lived enough life yet. And as much as I wanted to think I had it figured out when I was 24, that's because that's probably about how old he is in this video, 24 to 26. I did not have it figured out. And plus, I think life is a series of figuring out. You're going to figure out one thing, and then a few years later, you're going to adjust, you're going to change, you're going to figure some more shit out. Like it's a constant kind of wave of new experience and new reaction to that experience and rediscovering who you are. Because I swear, like every 5 years, every decade, I'm kind of like rediscovering pieces of myself as I'm getting older and older. So I just find it so funny that this like 4-year-old is telling us that the secret to existing and not being confused anymore is to appreciate that you exist. But I think the labels help us understand ourselves and define ourselves to other people so that other people can understand us more, if that makes sense. Talking about a word salad, I just am chit chatting away. Let's get back into it.
Labels, concepts, ideas, basically words. Everything we know is a word. When we think we're experiencing something, we're not actually experiencing the isness of it. We pretend to experience the label. We say, oh, I am angry. But really, if you look at it, anger is not anger unless you call it anger. It really is just the isness of that energy.
If if I couldn't say listen, I'm not angry. I'm in the isness of the energy that is angry about the situation. I feel like you need these definitions to be able to communicate better with other people. I don't, and maybe there's a psychologist, like an actual person who is educated about the mind and our feelings and how they kind of function together. But I would say we need these defined understandings of how we feel. I'd say we get more into this kind of toxic type of situation if we can't define something like anger and it just kind of is. And I think too, this prepares people who might speak against Bentinho and say, this is making me angry, you're making me angry, he's then able to say, I am not making you angry. You are existing in the isness that is angry. That means there's something wrong with you. It's not about my teaching. You are experiencing anger, and that has nothing to do with me. Meanwhile, he's coercing you into sleeping with him so that he can heal your trauma or give you therapy. Like, it's like another Keith Raniere, because he said the same thing. Oh, this sexual experience is going to be really intense for you because I'm such a high energy, high vibrational being. Like, give me a break. But I do feel like this is all just like priming his audience. It's my speculation that he didn't leave India back when he was like 18 because he believed himself to be the most enlightened. He had worked with several gurus already. He was at a point in his life where he had to try to make some kind of living or discover what he wanted to do with his life. He recognized how much money the gurus around him were making or had the potential to make, and he learned all those skills on how to manipulate his audience to get them to give him money so that he could teach them things or heal them or help them. And we're in this time, and we have been, I think, for several years, where there's a severe distrust in America, anyways, regarding the medical industry and doctors. There's a ton of distrust right now, even as it pertains to, although we're speaking more about mental health, even as it pertains to mental health. And when I think of someone that found these teachings, I do think of someone who might be like me or have feelings that I have felt before, feelings of anxiety, despair, depression, concern, self doubt, because I know that I first came to New Age spirituality when I was really feeling lost and needing guidance in my life. And having some kind of spirituality to ground myself resonated, and it helped me believe that I had more power and control in my life than I really did, because honestly, there's so much we can't control. And this law of attraction ideology of always seeing the positive, always seeing the positive, it's really dangerous because it means lack of processing your actual feelings. And so I'm just saying all of this to say, although there is a distrust of people in the medical field, I do think that going to a psychologist and talking is much better than finding some kind of online guru who could mislead you down a wrong path. My therapist that I was with for over a year, he never diagnosed me. I just got to talk to him. He was very spiritually oriented, but he also had his degree. So it was like the best of both worlds. And it was a really good experience. It validated me, it helped me process things. I got to see things through a more practical yet spiritual light. And then I did get to a point for me personally where I was like, I think I need a diagnosis. I think I need a little more help because I feel anxious every single day, all day. And I'm really happy to say, and I was talking to my fiance recently, that I just got diagnosed with anxiety and I got prescribed something for anxiety. And the difference I feel every day is so stark that I'm like, why didn't I just do this sooner? I've been suffering for years, for my entire adult life, every day, sometimes staying up till 4 or 5 because my anxiety is just making thoughts run in my head. I could have thought so many more positive things about myself. I wouldn't have been so hard on myself if I had just gotten a diagnosis earlier. And I'm just sharing that in case someone is watching and is like, I need to get deeper in my practices. I need to get deeper in my spirituality because I've been there where I've thought, I'm doing the meditations, I'm doing the journaling, I'm doing the manifestation practices, I'm visualizing my life. Why is nothing getting better? It feels like it's getting worse. I am not happier. And if I am happy, I feel like it's fake. I'm pretending to be happy because I have to be vibrating high to attract what I want. And that became really detrimental to my mental health. So if you're there, if you're where I was, Do not follow someone like Bentinho. Do not follow one of these spiritual gurus online. Honestly, go to talk to someone, to a professional who can give you actual help. And it's okay if you don't want to get on medication right away. They're not necessarily going to diagnose you right away, but you can start the process into working with someone one on one who's going to give you direct guidance and tools instead of flowery language and things that sound pretty and won't work for you. It's almost like getting something custom made. That's the only difference between talking to one of these gurus online or watching them and going to an actual psychologist. You're getting that custom experience with a psychologist or psychiatrist or whomever you choose to go to. Even if it's a little more spiritual based, they exist. You can find these people and they will help you, and you can kind of figure out, okay, I have the tools I need. This is working. Or, okay, I feel like things are deeper than I anticipated. So I think I do need something a little more, I guess you could say, strong. Because I'm telling you, for me, anyways, it's really making a difference in my quality of life. Anyways, let's continue.
Refrain from getting lost in the labels, then we refrain from getting lost at all. And we're really just completely clear. There's no confusion. There's clarity. There's a stability that allows the emotional energy to be there, that allows the mental energy to be there, without it necessarily swaying us from that sense of compassionate stability, which is innate in all of us. So the confusion really is
I just love that hand that popped in the corner. Like, oh, hey, oh, oops, we're still recording. Whoops.
caused by our society's tendency to focus on the things, to focus on what something means, and not to allow for any space in between those words. Just allow for some space in between the words. Allow children or allow anybody to familiarize themselves with the space in between the concepts, because that is way more stable. That is the only stability in life. That's the only thing that doesn't change. And therefore it's so crucial to realize what doesn't change is so crucial, because that's the only stability giving quality of our existence.
If you're someone like me who has had a lot of moments of anxiety or a lot of anxious thoughts, and it goes on for days and days, according to this logic here, if you're looking at what is happening all of the time, what's most common, for someone like me, that might mean, okay, my nervous system is always in an anxious state. And you might start defining that as, okay, well, this is just normal. This is just how I am. And it doesn't feel good. And I don't like being here. But Bentinho says to focus on what is constant and what is, and that's your stability. But it's kind of what they say, like, when you start healing a trauma or you finally get into a healthy relationship, and because of your trauma, your body has, or your nervous system has gotten like so used to being on edge that any type of calmness kind of triggers your nervous system. And so you have to like relearn how to work with your triggers and retrain yourself on what's a healthy relationship dynamic, for example, right? If we were to use that example, you would finally be in a healthy relationship. So even though things are smooth sailing, you might get triggered anyways, like, what are you hiding from me? You're acting way too calm. And your partner might be like, no, I'm just happy with you. But your nervous system is so used to always looking for red flags or looking for something bad that that's your constant. And what he's saying here, if you're an anxious person like me, you can't just shut that off. That's why medication has been created to help us, to make sure that we're in a place where we can live life without that being our constant state, our constant frame of mind, because it is so draining and exhausting. And I hope it's okay that I'm sharing this. I'm sharing it not because I want to talk about myself or share, I don't know, or I don't want to come off as like a pill pusher. But if someone is out there that feels a certain way about their mental health and is scared to reach out or scared to get help or feels shame towards getting help or does have anxiety and has been diagnosed and is fearful of talking about it, I just want it to be a little bit more normalized. And hey, if you don't have that experience and certain spiritual practices have helped your spirituality, that is amazing. Like, good job, but it doesn't work on all of us. So, I just want to make that clear that I want everyone to find their healing however they need to find it. But I want people to be wary of people like Bentinho who aren't doing it for your benefit. They're doing it for their benefit.
Everything else is unreliable. Everything else that is will go again. But the isness itself, the presence of a thing, not the word, stays. It is always open, spacious, present, aware. It allows for everything to be as it is. There is a natural acceptance of all that appears.
If there's a natural acceptance of all that appears, then no one is going to see a red flag or a problem. And that's why he says this, is because when he abuses people, he wants to be able to say to them, hey, accept what is. This is how things are naturally. He's incapable of doing anything that's not for your benefit. So anything he does is going to teach you something, whether he's making you work for him for free and create these videos for free, which he has done, whether it's coercing someone to strip down naked while they're having a party in Ecuador, which he has done, whether it's coercing someone to give him large sums of money so he can invest it and then just claiming it was an investment gone wrong. Him asking people to sign NDAs before they attend a retreat or become part of his inner circle or work with him because he is aware of the bad things that he is doing to people, but he wants the people he's doing those bad things to not be aware because they need to just be in the flow and allow whatever shows up for them to show up for them and not question anything because that is the ism of it. It is just being. Shut up. Say something worthwhile. Okay, we are going to go to the next video. And guys, I know I'm long-winded. I'm trying to condense things down and be better about it because I do see the irony in me complaining about word salads and then I talk for a very long time, but I hope I am making good points, good valid points, and that my points are getting across. Promise, I'm not over here trying to be a cult leader. All right. Now he's going to tell us how to shift your state at will. So no matter what you're feeling, he's going to teach us the trick to like make it so you don't feel it anymore because he's magic and he's an alien sent from outer space to heal our society, heal all of humanity. Let's listen to this alien.
Just like awareness never becomes anything that it creates, produces, perceives, imagines, and so forth. You can even be identified super heavily with your body, with your personality, with your self-image, with your society, with your nation, with your political views. You can be so identified with that, but that essential awareness, which hears my voice right now, which looked in the mirror when you were 8 years old, which looked in the mirror this morning, it's the same. It has no ideas. It is the power to create, produce, and believe in whatever you choose to create, produce, or believe in. So, formless awareness, formless, the power that you are right now, that hears my voice, that formless power, which you can't find, you can't put it next to you on a couch, you can't put it in your pocket, you can't put it in your bank account, you can't give it to another person, yet it's always here as the essence of I am, as the essence of I know. That clarity, that essential primordial naked awareness, when it sees a form that itself produced, because all form, all experience happens where? In awareness. You're aware of a form because of awareness. So inside of that awareness, we could say, doesn't really have a location, but we could say that inside of awareness, inside of formless awareness, there appears form and shape like a painter.
Okay. This is where my brain starts feeling like it's getting tied up in knots because it's literally like I have to untie the knot of nothingness that he is saying to try to make any sense of it all. So what he's saying is based off of my understanding of like basic new agey principles is that I'm so sorry, I'm trying, is that we are all the awareness that we are supposed to be tapping into is formless, which means it is just an energy basically. See, this is the thing with how he talks. He like almost makes like a point and then he goes off and like gives you 60 examples of that thing and then tries to get you back to the point. But by that time, your brain is like, I don't know how we just did all of this to get here, and it just feels like you are just talking spiritual words that it's like stream of consciousness but meaningless at the same time. It's aggravating. But the beauty of being okay, so what he's saying is the beauty of being aware of your formless awareness is that you are now able to become aware that you are aware of your awareness. I'm so sorry. Okay, let's keep going.
Awareness is like the creative intelligence of a painter that's able to paint form. But if the painter forgets the painter and it indulges or gets lost in or starts
All he's just talking about having an idea. When a painter paints, an impulse comes to make the stroke. So now he's literally just talking about when you have an idea. When you have an idea and you make the thing, that's what awareness is. It's the same thing as like I get that he's trying to do the whole like you are a creator, you can create your reality, just paint the picture of the life that you want. Da 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 da. This is nothing new and it's nothing special, and he is not special. I can sit and go grab coffee with a girlfriend and talk about the same stuff. Oh, I am aware of this idea. I have this idea and I just want to be able to put pen and paper to it. Like it's at
to mingle with what it is painting too much, now it's going to create an illusory effect called I am this shape, or I am this form, or I am this feeling, or there's a consequence to doing this and then it will hurt me, or there's a consequence to doing that and then it will give me pleasure or expansion.
He really hates anyone having any type of label or identity, and it's my belief that this is an effort to strip you from yourself. Because if someone is stripped from their own sense of self, if they can't identify their feelings, if they take away definitions for feelings like anger, sadness, upset, anxiety, then they're unable to define it. And that is how those impulses that tell us, like our gut feeling, those start to get switched off or we stop listening to them. And I'd imagine that someone that is listening to his teachings every day, over and over and over again, and then goes to his workshop and meets him, they're already mentally primed to not ask questions, to not be truly in touch with their feelings, and to not be able to define when that gut instinct comes up and says, something's wrong here. Something is telling me I don't want to do this. I need to have boundaries. I need, like, if you're not able to identify how you feel and see why you feel that way, you're not going to ever be able to form any boundaries because you're not going to understand what you need to feel good. Because typically we create boundaries around ourselves to protect ourselves. But if you're constantly shutting down all of your emotional impulses and trying to redefine those feelings for yourself and not give them as much weight and understanding like he's asking you to do, then slowly but surely you're turning those impulses off. You're shutting them down. And instead of saying, like, ooh, I don't like this, this made me feel a certain way, I need to create a boundary around that or say no and hold firm my boundary. Instead of that, you might be like, oh, I had a visceral, upsetting reaction to that. I don't know why I had that reaction, but I guess it's just a part of my existing right now. And I need to just learn to accept what's happening to me. That's dangerous. That's how we start shutting off. People say, how do people get stuck in cults? How do people get in and how do they stay in? It's because they have slowly turned off their impulses and intuition because they're listening to stuff like this that is asking them to shut those impulses down. That's what he's asking you to do in a very, very long way. But he knows he can't say, hey, you're going to be a lot easier to manipulate if you stop getting red flags and stop questioning my teaching, and if you stop getting angry or upset or triggered with what I'm doing, I'm going to be able to do whatever I want to do to you. So stop worrying about those feelings. And since we shame ourselves naturally for having any kind of negative reaction, even if it's valid, especially women, I feel like if we get angry or if we get emotional or sad or upset, it's like we're reacting poorly to a situation when really it's totally justified reaction to whatever that thing that happened was. He wants you to shut that stuff down. That's why he doesn't want you to define it. He doesn't want you to get lost in the exterior, because if you start paying attention to the exterior, some red flags might start waving and you might see those red flags. All of these are intentional on keeping you indoctrinated into his teachings. This is his version of indoctrination. We are seeing it now.
You see? But at all times, you're that infinite formless painter. This is self-realization, is what we're aiming to realize, help you realize. So now that awareness forgets its essential formlessness, is unable to recognize that abstract reality that's so evidently here, just like the space is right here, but goes unnoticed because it's so abstract, formless, and subtle, and always there. Similarly, awareness forgetting itself, the power to know, not recognizing itself, but only focusing on objects and thoughts and forms and ideas, it develops this sense of self. This sense of self then starts seeking its own source, its own self. That's the irony. That's the funny part, the painfully funny part for many. And so that's why Buddha said life equals suffering, or life is suffering. That's what.
Having your own sense of self, your own form of self, is really positive. If you lack an understanding of who you truly are, and I don't mean in the spiritual sense of who you are and how you're connected spiritually to other people, or who you really are the way that a lot of these new age practitioners talk about the self, because I oftentimes they define the self as like positive and high vibrational and da 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 da. But your truest self might not feel that way all the time. And we need to start understanding ourselves truthfully and look at ourselves very, very honestly, because that is how we learn how to take accountability. That is how we grow. Because if you look at yourself and you're like, okay, I really need to improve on X, Y, and Z, and you do it in a loving way, not a critical way, you can really grow. And I believe that's where true growth comes from. I believe that's how we expand and grow. I feel like this type of practice, this type of teaching, doesn't make you better for yourself or the other people around you. It only makes you better for him. It only makes you better able to get sculpted by him. It only makes your brain, your body more easily accessible to him. It doesn't actually help you become a better person, because you're thinking so much inside this like tiny little box of you and your spiritual experience, instead of, okay, like I recognize my faults, I recognize where I can grow, I recognize my strengths. Now, how do I turn my weaknesses into strengths? How do I make myself better? Maybe you do have a negative feeling towards something, and unpacking that feeling and processing it helps you become better, so that when you do get triggered by someone else, you don't have to have a visceral reaction to them. You can stay grounded and communicate, hey, I've gotten triggered. I would love it if we were able to communicate in a better way or an easier way, whatever it really means to you. But I just think that this kind of teaching is so dangerous, because he's literally just like, you should have no identity. You should have no self. All you are is space and existing. But then that means you don't have purpose. You don't have, it's like very existential. And for me, existential feelings of, none of this really matters. I'm just a non existent space and time. It makes you feel like you're not valuable, like you're not important, for me, anyways. And that's another reason why I find this ideology very dangerous, because it's disconnecting you from yourself, and it's disconnecting you from those around you who aren't listening to this type of ideology. This is how people get into that cult mindset, because this becomes all that they want to talk about. And simultaneously, there's this new language around it. So all these complex concepts that he's talking about, that's all people want to talk about because that's where they think their value is instead of themselves. They look to Bentinho as this healer instead of recognizing if you're healing your own traumas and your own triggers, you get to pat yourself on the back for that because that is hard work. I've already been talking for a long time, which I tend to do, so we are going to jump over to his next video. So this is actually going to be an excerpt from his recent book that he wrote. So let's take a listen. It's called The Birth of the False Self: From God to Ego. And in this video, we're going to see a great example of him redefining commonly used words and giving them a new connotation or definition, basically. In this, we're going to hear him refer to the ego as a gremlin, which in my opinion gives it this very bad connotation, when in reality, our ego is, yes, it can get inflated, but it's also there to protect us. So kind of like, in my opinion, managing the ego and understanding the ego is a lot more important than shutting it off completely. But let's listen to him reading an excerpt from his book.
We adopted this gremlin into our nervous system on the basis of feeling vulnerable and seeking a protector, a substitute parent, if you will, in response to this core perception of being vulnerable. By the way, did you wonder already what would happen to your motivational mechanism if you fired the gremlin from your consciousness? Just a heads up that I will explore with you a little bit later on how, without the gremlin controlling your mind and actions, this motivational mechanism of your life shifts in a truly beautiful way.
So again, the gremlin is essentially your ego.
Theory. Just some things I wrote today as part of the book I'm working on. But I'm working on part 2 now. So again, brief summary. Part 1 is about what are you? Part 2 is about what are you not? And part 3 is about why are you here? Or what's the relevance of this whole shebang, the show.
Guys, Bentinho knows. He knows who we are. He's going to tell us who we're not, and then he's going to tell us why we're here.
Helping people see through, because in part 1, we introduced them to the basic nature of reality, at least to the point of awareness. I do mention the absolute in some subchapters, but mainly the book guides people to become familiar with their naked thought-free awareness, both throughout thought as well as throughout no thought.
Man, imagine talking about this for 13 years. I'm tired and I've only been recording this video for, an hour now. And I'm like, is there more? How many different ways can you say you need to be aware of your awareness? And then you need to be aware that you're aware of your awareness. And then you need to be aware that you are seeking awareness about your awareness so that you're aware of your awareness. And then that you are aware that you are aware. Everything's fine, Erin. Just press play.
And then part 2 helps them to liberate themselves more, I wouldn't say more directly, it's in a sense less directly, but more like a surgeon, seeing through the patterns and seeing through the false conflations of the true self with...
I'm so sorry. It's hard to respond to someone who is saying nothing. He wrote a book about nothing. To me, this is not about, just go journal it, dude. Go write this in a journal. This would be great for a journal. Stream of consciousness, random thoughts. That's awesome. Go for it. Go write your journal. That would be fine. But we don't all need to hear it. You don't need to write a book about what you're thinking. This is such an inflated, sense of self. This is just feels, if you're 420 friendly, that's what this feels like. It feels like he smoked a little bit or had an edible and then was like, time to tell everyone about the truth of the universe. Like, if you've ever partaken, you've had those moments where you're like, whoa, I just came to this worldly realization. And whether it's real or not, or resonates or not, in the moment you think, this is really, really important. And that is how this makes me feel. I'm just like, this guy is just super baked. And he's just wrote this down and is talking to a camera. And he's like, dude, I'm so high right now, but like, you gotta hear, I just figured out the secret of the universe.
The little me, or the gremlin. And by showing people how the mechanics, how the strategies of the gremlin operate, how the patterns operate, why they operate, what's the cause of that, they should be able to free themselves more completely and with greater nuance, if you will, and faster. So today I wrote a few pages on the gremlin's never-ending quest for
Again,
safety.
this is individual. Your gremlin or ego or negative self-talk, whatever you want to call it, it is specific to you, right? So, yes, understanding basic principles of why we have these inner voices and why we might think negative thoughts about ourselves and why we might be self-critical or why we might have trauma or why we might have certain triggers. Yes, it's so important to unpack that. And it's important to have a basic understanding and feel less alone. Like, oh, other people have this negative self-talk too. That is very important and very valuable. But the secret to what I might be dealing with is going to be a totally different solution than what you might deal with, what person A is dealing with, person B. Do you know what I mean? Anyone claiming to have this secret to your mental health, your spiritual space, is lying to you. Because all of these concepts that he's talking about, we can find an equal or greater and better to understand psychological definition or benefit from it that you can get from an actual counselor. And I think that I mean, this is just my speculation and theory, but I think partly because we're so distrusting of people in the medical field, and we only over the last several years started talking about mental health more openly. But people used to be shamed for going to speak to somebody or having a counselor. And with the onset of the internet, we are getting so many different new ideas that when you do come across someone who is sharing something that maybe you've thought about before or you are very intrigued by, it might resonate more. It might be more interesting. You might have more questions. You might want those questions answered right away. And so I think it's totally normal, especially for people within my generation, millennials, and, Bentinho's generation and younger, we f- we have more access to these different ideologies, these different people online who are trying to solve all of our problems, when really what we might need is to just go make an appointment to talk to a professional about what we're feeling. And I think it's nice to know that there's a bigger purpose on earth than just us. I think that's why there's constant arguments about spirituality and religion. But the biggest point I would want to make today is that that can also be super personal to you. It's okay to have certain things of law of attraction resonate, and certain things from Christianity resonate, and certain things from, Buddhism resonate. It's okay to kind of appreciate different pieces of different practices and religions and let it just be for you personally. I don't like to talk about what I personally believe because, A, honestly, it's always changing. I feel like I'm always making new discoveries and changing my mind. And B, it's personal. And you don't need to know what I believe spiritually because you get to decide what resonates with you. I just want to make these videos, especially trying to debunk. And I know we only watched a little bit of that video, but I've been talking for quite some time now, and I don't want this video to be like 2 hours long. But I understand that there's this human need impulse to kind of want to have it all figured out. You want to figure yourself out. You want to figure out God, spirituality. You want to figure out your place in the world, figure out your purpose. I guess I just want to say that it's okay that you don't have it figured out. Honestly, life is constantly figuring it out. It's a series of figuring stuff out. You're never going to be done trying to figure it out because life will throw you curveballs. Being grounded in something will help you, whether it's you're grounded in yourself. For me, the more grounded I am in myself, the better I feel. The more I do things not because someone told me to or because some person online says that's the path to spiritual enlightenment, but what feels good to me. Utilizing something like Bentinho's teachings, it might not help you. It might hurt you, and it has hurt people. And it has specifically hurt people who have struggled allegedly with depression and anxiety. So if you are one of those people, it's okay to seek out help from a professional. Whether or not you want to right now, that's okay, but the answer is not going to be from some woo woo spiritual coach online. The answer is going to be inside of you and you listening to what you truly need and being a little bit more honest with yourself and not stripping away yourself or your ego, but connecting to yourself more so that you have a better understanding on what you truly need. I think today that's where I want to end this video. I really hope you found some value in it, and I appreciate you here today. We have a lot of great things coming up. Next week, I'm going to be debunking some more Twin Flames universe. I might bring our estranged parent back for an update, and I'm going to provide an update for you all on Nature Boy because his trial is actually on the 20th of February, 2024. So I might live stream it. Let me know if that's something you'd be interested in. And I'm working on my Teal Swan deep dive. So if you have any personal experiences within that group slash cult, please feel free to email me. It's erinfinley@gmail.com. You'll find it down in the description box below. And otherwise, y'all, I hope you have an amazing rest of your day, your week, your weekend. Thank you so much. And please stay safe out there, stay skeptical, and always ask questions. Until next time, bye.